June 19th, 1944. Dawn spreads thin, pale light across the Philippine Sea, and at 18,000 feet, the air is already alive with vibration engines, radio static, the metallic tremor of machines built to kill. Inside the cramped cockpit of a Mitsubishi A6M0, Petty Officer First Class Hiroshi Tanaka of the Imperial Japanese Navy leans forward, gloved hands tight on the control stick. The smell of fuel and hot oil fills the mask. Below him, the ocean is a flat, blinding blue. Somewhere ahead, far beyond the curvature of the windscreen, enemy carriers wait. Tanaka has flown combat since Guadalcanal. He has dueled Wildcats, outrun P-40s, and watched friends vanish in fireballs over black water. He trusts his Zero, light, responsive, almost alive beneath him. It can turn inside anything the Americans have. Everyone knows that. The radio crackles. Enemy aircraft reported bearing 085. A controller's voice snaps. Altitude high, multiple contacts. Tanaka glances at his wingman, then shoves the throttle forward. The Zero surges, climbing hard. Wings flexing as the formation tightens. Sunlight flashes off aluminum skins. Above them, dots begin to form dark specks against the sky. At 22,000 feet, the first silhouettes sharpen. They are not Wildcats. The shapes are bigger, thicker through the fuselage, broad wings, a massive radial engine up front like a clenched fist. As they descend, their dark blue paint absorbs the light, making them look heavier, predatory. Tanaka frowns. He has never seen this aircraft before. Across the sky, Commander James Jig Dog Ramage of the United States Navy rolls his Grumman F6F Hellcat onto its back and pushes the nose down. The airspeed needle climbs. The Hellcat doesn't shudder. It doesn't complain. It just dives fast, stable, lethal. Below him, the Japanese formation is already breaking. Zeros scattering as pilots try to gain altitude, try to position for the familiar turning fight they know so well. Ramage keys his radio. All Hellcats tally-ho, engage at will. The sky explodes into motion. Tanaka hauls his Zero into a climbing left turn, instinct guiding muscle and bone. The aircraft responds instantly, carving a tight arc. A dark blue fighter flashes past his canopy, too fast, far faster than any Wildcat. Tanaka reverses, trying to pull the American into a turn. But the American doesn't turn. Instead, the Hellcat roars straight up, vertical, engine bellowing like thunder. Tanaka's eyes widen. No enemy aircraft should be able to do that, certainly not with such speed. Another Hellcat drops out of the sun. Tracers streak past Tanaka's wingtip, ripping the air with a sound like tearing cloth. He yanks the stick back, Zero shuddering as it snaps into a tighter turn. The G-forces crush him into the seat. His vision tunnels. The Hellcat overshoots, but not by much. Tanaka hears shouting on the radio now, Japanese voices overlapping, sharp with disbelief. These fighters too fast. They climb straight up. I cannot turn with him. Tanaka levels out, heart hammering. He scans the sky, searching for his wingman. He finds him in pieces. A Zero falls past, trailing smoke, its right wing sheared nearly in half. No parachute, just wreckage tumbling toward the sea. The Hellcat that killed him doesn't linger. It zooms away, already lining up another target. Tanaka tries again, pulling into a classic horizontal turn, the maneuver that has saved him before. The Zero swings beautifully, nose tracking smoothly. The Hellcat follows for a moment. Then it does something impossible. It stays with him. Not perfectly, but enough. The American pilot fires short, controlled bursts. Heavy .50 caliber rounds punch through the Zero's fuselage. Metal screams. Warning lights flare red. Tanaka smells smoke. He dives. The Hellcat dives faster. The radio erupts again, this time with raw fear. This is a new fighter, strong, armored. Our cannon hits do nothing. Tanaka's breathing grows ragged. He pushes the Zero to its limits, skimming the edge of structural failure. The Hellcat finally breaks off, zooming upward once more, untouchable. For the first time since he earned his wings, Tanaka feels something cold settle in his chest. This enemy cannot be outturned. It cannot be outrun, and it does not forgive mistakes. As the sky fills with falling aircraft, many of them Japanese, Tanaka transmits a message that will echo across the fleet. This enemy fighter, it is completely different. Tanaka pulls his crippled Zero eastward, engine coughing, oil streaking the canopy like black rain. The sky behind him is chaos, contrails slicing through cloud layers, fireballs blooming and vanishing, parachutes too few and far between. Above it all, the dark blue fighters still prowl, climbing and diving with ruthless precision. He switches frequencies, voice tight, fighting to keep it steady. All units listen carefully, he says. The enemy fighter is heavily armored. It does not burn easily. It climbs faster than expected and retains speed in the dive. Do not attempt prolonged turning combat. There's a pause. Then another pilot answers, panic barely restrained. I hit one direct cannon strike. No effect. Tanaka grips the radio tighter. His Zero shudders again as the engine misfires. He knows what that report means. The Zero's strength, its lightness, is suddenly its greatest weakness. High above, Lieutenant Commander Alex Fracciu lines up his next target. His Grumman F6F Hellcat feels solid, almost reassuring, as he pushes into a shallow dive. The airspeed builds quickly, the big Pratt & Whitney engine roaring without strain. Ahead, a cluster of Zeros tries to regroup, their movements sharp but increasingly desperate. Vracheu doesn't chase turns. He never needs to. He fires from a slight deflection angle, 6 50 caliber machine guns hammering in unison. The recoil vibrates through the airframe. One Zero erupts, fuel tanks igniting instantly. Another snaps into a spin, smoke trailing like a banner. Over the radio, American voices are calm, almost routine. Splash one. Another going down. Watch your 6. This is not like earlier battles. There is no frantic scrambling, no clawing just to survive. The Hellcat pilots dictate the fight. They choose when to engage, when to break away, when to return for the kill. Below, Tanaka watches 2 more Zeros fall. He knows the Americans have learned something vital. They no longer fear the turn. They simply refuse to play that game. A transmission cuts through the Japanese Channel Fleet Command. Identify enemy aircraft type. Tanaka hesitates, eyes flicking to the dark shapes arcing high above. He has heard rumors whispers after earlier encounters, but nothing like this. He answers slowly, carefully. Unknown Grumman fighter, larger than Wildcat, extremely fast. Recommend avoiding engagement unless numerical advantage. The words feel inadequate. On an American carrier deck hundreds of miles away, signal officers listen as reports stream in. One name keeps appearing in after-action chatter, scribbled onto plotting boards and radio logs. Hellcat. The aircraft had been designed for this moment, stronger landing gear for carrier decks, armor around the cockpit, self-sealing fuel tanks, and raw engine power meant to dominate the vertical plane. Where the Zero dances, the Hellcat hunts. Back in the air, Tanaka's engine finally begins to seize. He throttles back, gliding as best he can, eyes scanning for any sign of American pursuit. None come. The Hellcats have already moved on, climbing back into position to intercept the next wave. He realizes then the most terrifying thing of all. They do not need to finish him. As he limps toward the horizon, Tanaka hears another voice on the radio, older, steadier, a flight leader trying to impose order. All pilots, disengage, preserve aircraft. But it is already too late. By midday, the sky over the Philippine Sea is littered with wreckage. Japanese formations are shattered before they ever reach American ships. The Zeros, once feared across the Pacific, are being destroyed in numbers that defy belief. Later, aboard a battered carrier, Tanaka sits in silence, flight suit stained with oil and sweat. Around him, mechanics move quietly, faces drawn. Pilots avoid each other's eyes. Someone finally speaks. What was it like? Tanaka exhales slowly. It was like fighting a wall that shoots back. Word spreads fast. Across ready rooms and command tents, the same phrases repeat: too fast, too strong, cannot outturn. Intelligence officers write summaries. Commanders underline key sentences. One line, pulled directly from a pilot's radio transmission, is marked in red pencil. This enemy fighter is completely different. By nightfall, the Japanese High Command understands the truth, even if they do not yet admit it aloud. Air superiority has shifted, not because their pilots forgot how to fight, not because their courage failed, but because in the skies above the Philippine Sea, they met an aircraft built to end an era. And the Hellcat has only just begun. June 19th, 1944, late afternoon. The sea below the shattered sky is no longer empty. It is dotted with smoke plumes, oil slicks, and the slow, silent drift of debris. The battle has moved on, but its evidence remains burned aluminum, floating life rafts, and the unmistakable wreckage of aircraft that will never return. On the flight deck of the Japanese carrier Shikaku, Petty Officer Hiroshi Tanaka sits cross-legged against a bulkhead, helmet resting in his lap. The deck vibrates beneath him as damaged crews rush past. Somewhere forward, a fire burns stubbornly, black smoke clawing at the sky. Tanaka stares at his hands. They are still trembling. Around him, the surviving pilots gather in small, broken clusters. No one boasts. No one replays heroic maneuvers. The silence is heavy, thicker than smoke. A junior pilot finally breaks it. They didn't fight like before, he says. They didn't chase. Tanaka nods. They didn't have to. In a dimly lit ready room below deck, officers pore over hurried reports. Chalkboards are filled with tallies that make no sense: losses too high, victories too few. One staff officer reads aloud from intercepted radio chatter, his voice low. The Americans refer to the aircraft as Hellcat. The word hangs in the air. On the opposite side of the ocean, aboard the carrier USS Lexington, the mood could not be more different. Flight deck crews cheer as returning Hellcats slam down onto the deck, arrestor wires shrieking under strain. Some aircraft come back with holes punched clean through wings and fuselage damage that would have destroyed a Zero, but they land anyway. Lieutenant Commander Alex Vracheu climbs down from his cockpit, sweat-soaked and grinning. His aircraft crew already swarming the plane. How many? Someone asks. Vracheu shrugs, lost count. In the ready room, pilots talk fast, hands moving, replaying moments of the fight. There's excitement, but also something colder, professional satisfaction, the realization that the balance has shifted decisively in their favor. The Hellcat has done exactly what it was designed to do. Far above the Pacific, the sun begins to dip, painting the clouds red. For Japanese Air Command, the day's losses are catastrophic, not just in numbers, but in experience. Many of the pilots who went down today were veterans of China, Pearl Harbor, and the Solomon Islands. Years of hard-earned skill are gone in a single afternoon. Tanaka listens as a senior officer addresses the surviving aviators. "You faced a new enemy today," the officer says carefully. "This does not mean we are defeated, but we must adapt." Tanaka knows the truth they do not say aloud. There is nothing left to adapt with. The Zero was built for a different war, one of agility, finesse, and lightly armed opponents. The Hellcat represents a brutal new philosophy: armor over elegance, firepower over fragility, survivability over perfection. That night, Tanaka writes a brief entry in his notebook. Enemy fighters are no longer afraid of us. He closes it and stares at the ceiling, listening to the distant rumble of engines and the creak of a wounded ship. Across the fleet, similar realizations take hold. Orders are issued to conserve pilots, engagement rules change, avoidance replaces aggression. But the Americans will not avoid. The next morning, the sky fills again, this time with even more Hellcats, rising in disciplined formations from steel decks that stretch beyond the horizon. The Japanese response is weaker, thinner, fractured before it even reaches combat altitude. The battle will later be called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. But for those who lived it, especially those who flew against the Hellcat, it is remembered differently. It is remembered as the moment the air war was lost. Not in one dramatic explosion, not with a single command decision, but in a series of radio calls, confused, frightened, disbelieving broadcast from cockpits that suddenly realized the future had arrived. And it wore dark blue paint. June 20th, 1944. Morning light returns to the Pacific, but it brings no comfort. Hiroshi Tanaka stands on the carrier deck as the first combat air patrol launches. The wind is stronger today, snapping signal flags hard against their lines. He watches Zeros roll forward one by one, fewer than yesterday, spaced farther apart, their pilots' movements stiff with exhaustion and dread. He is not flying today. His aircraft is grounded, riddled with damage that cannot be repaired quickly. Part of him is relieved. Another part is ashamed. As the Zeros lift off, he already knows what waits above them. High overhead, the Americans are there first. Dark blue Hellcats orbit in wide, lazy circles, engines humming steadily, pilots scanning the horizon with practiced calm. They have altitude. They have speed. And now they have certainty. A Japanese scout aircraft is spotted and destroyed before it can even turn back. Moments later, radar contacts multiply. Hellcats dive in pairs and trios, slashing through climbing Zeros before they can form up. The pattern repeats: dive, fire, climb, reposition. Clean, efficient, merciless. From the Japanese radio net, Tanaka hears fragments of transmission. Enemy above us, multiple. Braking, braking, then static. A nearby officer grips the rail, knuckles white. He doesn't shout. There's nothing left to command that hasn't already failed. Below the combat, the ocean swallows more wreckage. Some pilots ditch successfully, bobbing in the water, watching the sky where they once ruled. Others never emerge at all. By midday, it is clear even to the most stubborn optimist. The Americans control the air completely. On the U.S. side, the mood has shifted again. The excitement of the first day has hardened into doctrine. Hellcat pilots now talk in terms of zones, altitude layers, and kill boxes. The Japanese aircraft are no longer mysterious adversaries, they are predictable targets. A young American pilot notes aloud, almost casually, "They don't climb to meet us anymore." No one contradicts him. Tanaka retreats below decks as the carrier turns into the wind to recover the last aircraft. Too few return. Empty arrestor wires slap uselessly against the deck. The absence is louder than any explosion. In a briefing room that smells of sweat and oil, intelligence officers review the situation. Chalk marks are erased, rewritten, then erased again. The conclusion does not change. The Zero cannot survive in this environment. That evening, Tanaka overhears senior officers speaking in low voices. "We've lost our veteran corps. The Americans can replace aircraft and pilots faster than we can train them. And their fighters," one officer pauses, "they're only getting better." Tanaka closes his eyes. He remembers his first combat patrol years ago, the confidence, the pride, the belief that skill and spirit could overcome any enemy. That belief died somewhere above the Philippine Sea, shredded by heavy machine gun fire and dark blue wings. For the Americans, the Hellcat becomes something more than a plane. It becomes reassurance, a promise that if they fly smart and fly together, they will come home. For the Japanese pilots, it becomes a warning, a sound on the radio, a shape diving out of the sun. A fight you cannot win. Weeks later, training manuals will quietly change. Engagement tactics will be revised, but the damage is already done. The psychological edge, the unspoken certainty that once belonged to the Zero, has passed irrevocably to the other side. The sky has chosen. And, as the carriers steam westward, escorted by endless rings of Hellcats, one truth settles over the Pacific like the evening haze. The age of the Zero is over. The age of the Hellcat has begun. Days later, long after the last contrails have faded from the sky, the radio message still circulates. It is copied into after-action reports, summarized in intelligence briefings, and paraphrased in hurried translations. No one can agree on the exact wording, but the meaning is unmistakable. The enemy fighter is unlike anything we have faced before. Hiroshi Tanaka hears it again while seated in a quiet wardroom, his damaged flight gear folded neatly beside him. He is no longer scheduled for immediate combat duty. There are fewer aircraft now, and even fewer experienced pilots to fly them. Preservation has become policy. He thinks back to that first glimpse, the dark silhouette, the impossible climb, the way the American pilot refused to turn, the moment when instinct failed him. Across the ocean, aboard American carriers and at island airfields, the Hellcat's reputation grows almost overnight. New pilots are told stories by veterans who fought over the Philippine Sea. They are warned not to grow reckless, but they are also told something else. This plane will bring you home if you fly it right. The Hellcat becomes the backbone of American naval air power. It escorts bombers, hunts enemy fighters, strafes airfields, and protects fleets as they push steadily westward. Japanese resistance continues, but it is thinner now, more cautious, increasingly desperate. Tanaka watches the war change from a distance. New faces arrive, young pilots with fewer hours, narrower eyes, and questions no one can answer honestly. He helps where he can, teaching fundamentals, correcting mistakes, but the unspoken truth hangs between them. They will face Hellcats, and Hellcats will not show mercy. One evening, Tanaka stands on deck as the sun sinks into the Pacific. The sea is calm, almost mocking in its beauty. He listens to the carrier's engines, steady and tired, and remembers the confidence he once had in the sky. He realizes something heavier than fear. The radio message wasn't just a warning about an aircraft. It was an announcement that the rules had changed, that courage alone was no longer enough, that technology had overtaken tradition. For the Americans, the Hellcat represents momentum unstoppable, compounding, backed by industry and time. For the Japanese pilots who first encountered it, it represents finality, the sound of its engine in the distance, the shape diving out of the sun, the brief, stunned transmission before static. Years later, historians will analyze production numbers, kill ratios, and design philosophy. They will point to June 19th, 1944, and call it a turning point. But for those who were there, those who heard the message crackle through their headsets in real time, it will always be simpler than that. It was the day they realized the sky no longer belonged to them. And it all began with a single, shocked voice on the radio trying to warn anyone who could still listen.